Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of King of Commercial Real Estate with Dolf de Roos. So, how are you doing, Dolf? Welcome back again.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here as always. How are you doing today?
Super duper. And today we're going to talk about some of the questions that you need to ask when looking at a new building. So, one of the ones that we got on social media is, why is the property being sold? Why is it important to know why the property is being sold at the moment?
That is a good question. I don't think I know the answer to that because my true answer is I don't really care why it's being sold.
Oh.
I will ask out of curiosity, but even if it's because the sewer pipe is blocked and the bill to fix it is worth more than the building, even if that were the case, I can't imagine them revealing that. So sometimes people sell a building for the most crazy reasons. It could be a divorce situation. It could be old age. They just want to get rid of it. It could be that they're leaving town. Maybe they're leaving the country. At the end of the day, does it really matter? The building is on the market. What can we do with it? What are they asking? Are they asking $1 million for it? Let's say they are. They're asking $1 million. Can we do something to that building to make it worth $2 million? Because if we can make it worth $2 million and we only pay $1 million for it, I want to buy it no matter what their reason for selling is.
Oh, interesting. So, if there were any sort of legal issues, though, how do you deal with those when purchasing a building?
Well, we need to find out about those, but usually they are uncovered when you do the title search. You'll find out that there's an easement or there's some problem or there's a lien, a mechanic's lien or some challenge with the property. And if that's the case, usually they'll say, listen, I've got a lien on it. I need to make the sale. You need to pay me the money and then I can pay off the lien and we'll do it all at settlement. But they're very few and far between.
Oh, interesting. And so now, another question that we got is that when looking at a commercial property, do we need to know what the previous tenants were? Is it important to know that?
Well, I think it helps to know. It depends, again, on the circumstances. Some are such specialist properties that it's pretty hard to run any other operation there. But yeah, I'd like to know what the previous tenants did there. And
So what are some of those specialized buildings that you're mentioning are?
a rocket launch pad
Wow.
is quite a unique property. There's little else you can use it for. The reinforced pad needs to be reinforced to a high degree, and there's little else you can do with it. And by the way, I have been asked for that. I was on a flight from, Los Angeles to London, and the pilot came out, and he came out because I've got this logbook that they fill out. And he said, what do you do? I said, I'm real estate. He said, well, we should work together. He said, I'm not only the chief pilot for Virgin Atlantic, but I'm also the chief pilot for Virgin Galactic.
Oh.
And we're looking for a launch pad for our system, and you should get involved. In fact, with all the flying you've done, you should be one of the first to come out into space with us. So you can go boom, boom, boom from just having an idle chat to being involved with the rocket launch pad. So my point is, I'm not saying that completely facetiously. A rocket launch pad is a unique piece of real estate that doesn't have many alternative uses. Others do, like an industrial warehouse can be used for many things. Could be used for large-scale storage. It could be used as a repair shop for, aircraft engines. It could be anything.
Alrighty. And yeah, then again, it always comes back to being creative, because as long as you have a building and you have the best piece of real estate right here, you can just get any tenant to fill it out.
Right.
And another of the terms that we heard about when checking for a new building, it's a pro forma. What is a pro forma?
Proformas are funny little things. I survived 10 or 15 years in commercial real estate before even coming across it. So what it means is that, say you've got a commercial building that's divided into 4 different sectors, and one of them is tenanted at $20 a square foot, but the rest are vacant. But if they were all tenanted at the same $20 a square foot, then the building would be worth X. So it's being sold on a pro forma basis, meaning as if it's fully tenanted and they're all paying the market rate, in our example, $20 a foot. But in my view, because it's not fully tenanted, only a quarter of the space is tenanted, then it should only sell for a quarter of the pro forma price. Usually a commercial building sells for a multiple of its rental income. The mathematical way of expressing it is that the value of a commercial building is the rental income divided by the cap rate. Cap rate is short for capitalization rate. It literally means the rate at which you capitalize the rental to arrive at the value. But the important thing to note, Marjorie, is that it's based on the rental income, the actual rental income. So in the case of our imaginary building, a quarter of it's rented out at $20 a square foot. If that were $100,000 a year and cap rates were 10%, then that building would be worth $1 million. But if it's being sold on a pro forma basis, they would say, well, no, if it were tenanted and all 4 were tenanted at $100,000, then at that same 10% cap rate, that would cap out at $4 million. So we're asking $4 million for the building.
Oh, wow.
And I'm saying, but if it's that easy to get a tenant, then get a tenant. And they said, no, well, it's easy to get a tenant. You get the tenant. And I said, well, it's not easy to get a tenant. Otherwise, you would have gotten one. So I'm going to pay you the rental income, the actual rental income of $100,000 capped out at 10%. And often people get stuck on that. And I don't think they often sell at that $4 million value because that's not the true value. A building is worth a multiple of its actual income, not its potential income, if you were lucky enough to get a tenant.
And how do you go about that negotiation in this case for the pro forma price and the actual price?
Oh, often people get, sort of, I don't know if to call it pig-headed or not, but they say, no, it's worth $4 million. And I say, well, it's not to me, so I won't be paying you $4 million for it. And then they say, well, shove off. We'll find someone who's willing to pay $4 million. And sometimes they do. More often than not, they don't. Usually they come down in price. But the trick for me is not to necessarily buy it at that 1 million level because that's all it's worth. What I try to do is find a tenant, because if I can find a tenant for those 3 vacant spaces, then to me it is worth $4 million.
Oh. And the cool thing is that now you can have a letter of intent for not only that one space that is already with a tenant, but also with the other 3. Am I right?
Well, the one that's already tenanted, it doesn't need a letter of intent. It's already got a lease agreement on it. So it's fully leased. And all I need is an agreement from 3 other tenants, or one who wants to occupy the whole space, pardon me, to take it over. So yeah, as soon as we've got that, I'm in.
Oh,
The trick in commercial real estate is finding a tenant for vacant space. Because when you do that, then you can create money out of thin air.
and is it necessary to have already the rights of the building, or can you just start advertising these other vacant spaces without actually being the owner of the building?
Well, that is a slightly tricky question. So, for instance, I've talked before on a podcast about a funeral parlor that I came across, and it was not only vacant, but it had been vacant for 3 years. And in that case, I employed someone to phone every funeral director in the area going further and further away from the building until she found someone who was interested. There's no law that says before buying a funeral parlor, you are not allowed to phone funeral directors. You can phone them and say, listen, I want to annoy you. I'm a, what do you call those people who make phone calls, unwanted phone calls? Spam phone caller.
Yeah.
It's frowned upon, but so far they haven't outlawed it. I wish they can, because I get a ton of spam calls. But in this case, it's not pure spam. We're actually trying to see if there's someone who wants to lease that space. And it turns out there was. It took us 2 days to find him, but we got someone. So I think there's nothing against that. Now, if you run an advertisement with a photo of the building and saying building for lease and you don't own it, even then I don't think it matters, because if I owned that same building we're talking about, this imaginary building, a quarter of it's leased, 3/4 of it is empty, and I'm trying to sell it for $4 million on a pro forma basis, we know what that means now, and then some smart aleck comes along and runs a full-page ad on the front page of the New York Times advertising my building, I'm not going to say, that scoundrel, he doesn't even own it. I'm going to say, I hope he finds a tenant, because imagine if he does, he'll then pay me the pro forma price, the $4 million, to buy it from me, and I'm trying to sell it for $4 million.
That's right.
So even then, I see nothing morally or ethically wrong with what we're doing. Now, there might be someone who's up in arms about it, but probably for the wrong reason. So anyway, to me, it's a moot point. I don't buy buildings for $4 million when there's only a tenant for a quarter of it. I'll pay $1 million for it, but then get it appraised at $4 million after I found tenants for the vacant space. To me, finding tenants for vacant space, I wouldn't say it's easy, but in relative terms, it's trivial. It's just a matter of putting the effort in and appealing to people who are going to want it. There are people who want that space. We just have to find them.
That's right. So how do you go about finding these tenants for the previous buildings that you have owned?
Oh, there are so many methods. That's a whole, we can spend a day talking about it. What I say to people, you're looking at finding tenants at $100,000. Why don't you spend $1,000 on a big canvas sign, 5 yards wide, 2 yards high, for lease? And don't just put for lease on it. Then imagine if the whole city knows it's for lease, but they don't know who to call. So you've got to put a phone number on it. And maybe if you're smart, you put a website on it as well and have that website dedicated to whichever building you're advertising with our big canvas sign. That means when this building has been leased up and you've bought it and it's humming along, making you good money, you can use that same $1,000 sign. By the way, it won't cost $1,000, but you can use the same sign on another building with that phone number and that website. Make sure someone's there to answer the phone. Make sure the website is active and has all the relevant information. And don't hold back. I'm blown away by the number of people who don't put in the rental amount because they want you to call them because they think they can talk them into it. You might be missing out on 50% of your calls because you just don't want to put that information in. Put all the information in, how many square feet it is or square meters, what the zoning is, what you can do there, what the previous tenant was, what it can be used for, whether it's got a double height garage door so that containers can be delivered or not, all that sort of thing. What level of security it's got, what lighting is like, proximity to freeways and railway lines, anything that might be of relevance. So one way is just to let it be known that you've got it. So have a big canvas sign there. Another one is get A4 sheets or letters, American letter size sheets, and print it with a photo of the premises. Make it a color photo. The cost of making a color photocopy is
Not too
cents.
much.
It's not dollars. Make 500 of them. Deliver them yourself or pay kids, whatever dollars per batch of 100 to go to every business around there. You just need one business owner to say, oh my gosh, this business is available. My cousin's moving here from Cincinnati. He wants to operate, and I would love him to be close to me. We can have lunch together. On and on it goes. You just need one. So do that. Distribute those flyers. Then knock on doors. Go to all the businesses in your near vicinity and say, I'm going to go to the open market with this. But before I do, I just want you to know, do you want the space? Are you looking at larger premises than you've got? And if they say no, we're actually looking at downsizing. Well, how much do you have? I have 10,000 square feet. Well, I have 5,000 square feet of the perfect place to downsize. And if they say I'm neither upscaling or downsizing, you might say, well, do you want a place that's different? Yes, we've hardly got any car parks here. How many do you have? We have 20 car parks with this building. He might switch for the sake of car parks. He might switch because, as we said on a previous podcast, you've decked out the manager's office in such a salubrious way that it makes it appealing. It's all about imagination. What can we do to make this appealing? So we've got our canvas sign on the outside. We've got our website. We've got our phone numbers. We've got the flyers that we're distributing. You're knocking on doors yourself. Go to commercial agents as well. Well, they're going to charge me a year's worth of lease. So what?
It's just a little investment so you can get the tenant that you need.
And you're getting a tenant signed up on a 5-year lease with a 5-year right of renewal. So what if you pay a commission? That's better than having it vacant for the next 6 months. So see all the agents. See what online signs there are or sites. LoopNet, Crexy, you name it, or local ones. Just get it out there. Let it be known. If it's got a roof and you're near an airport, put a sign on the roof for lease. I read ironically yesterday about a guy who had a big industrial roof, and he painted on it, "Welcome to Cleveland."
Oh.
And that would have been okay, except it wasn't Cleveland. And apparently for lots of passengers, it caused panic when they came near the airport, wherever they were landing. I don't even know where it was. They said, oh my God, we're at the wrong place. How did it get? And there was panic. And the airport asked them to change it. And he said no. So they ended up buying his property.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I'm not suggesting you do that. But it goes to show the power of creative thought. You just have to do things slightly differently from every other person, and you'll get different results. And if everyone else is getting mediocre results, then it's great to get different results.
That's right. I also love it how transparent you were about the posting of this building. You just have to display as much information as you can to advertise your building and be as honest as you can. You also mentioned the zoning. So talking about the zoning, how can we find what are some of the regulations for the zone where your building is?
Well, most of the zoning information you can now get online. So by looking online, whatever the local county or city website is. I live in Maricopa County. I think it's maricopa.gov. I'm not even sure because when I go there, I just half type it out and it auto-populates. But you can look at any parcel of land there. You can go to a map and click on the land and it'll tell you what the parcel is. If you know the parcel number, you can put it in. You can find out who the owner is, or if you know the owner, it'll cross-reference everything. And from that, you get the zoning. It might be C45. And you might say, well, what on earth does that mean? And how does that differ from C46? Well, you look it up on the same website. They have all that information there for you.
And what are some of the hardest requirements that you had to overcome when buying a building, zoning-wise?
Well, usually 9 times out of 10, maybe 19 times out of 20, when I buy a building, I use it, I lease it out for a purpose that it's already zoned for. So to me, it's not a problem. I don't ever have an issue with zoning. And where I sometimes do really well is if I buy a house, for instance, that's zoned as residential, but I know that area is going to be converted to a zoning that allows for commercial, then instead of leasing it out as a house or renting it out as a house, I can lease it out as an accountant's office or a law firm office, or depending again on the zoning, as a wine bar or a coffee shop. And usually the rental you get per annum is way higher for a commercial use like that than for residential. So I might have bought the house in anticipation of a future zone change, or I might have bought the house, it's still leased out to a residential tenant after the zone change has been implemented. In either case, all I need to do is wait for approval to change the use, and then I don't renew the residential lease, and I convert it to a coffee shop or a law firm and lease it out at the higher rate.
That's really cool. And also, one of the things that we got asked on social media is it okay to look for future developments around the area? Is it important to do so when purchasing a building?
Well, you try and keep tabs on everything. Obviously, buying real estate isn't a linear process. You can't just look at 3 features. What's the rental per square foot? What's the growth of real estate in that suburb for the last 5 years? And give me another one at random. What's the price of coffee been doing? I mean, you can't just look at those 3 things. Real estate is dependent on the welfare of a country. And so right now, the Maldives are suffering from rising sea levels, and there's talk about will it even survive the next 100 years? So, that's something that you have to take into account when you want to decide, do you want to invest in the Maldives? I haven't looked at investing there because I'm a bit concerned about rising sea levels and how that could be a big, stickly problem. But we take a heuristic approach with a wide variety of factors. So yes, I want to buy in an area that's got inherent growth. And that's one of the reasons why I live in Phoenix. In fact, people say to me, you invest in Phoenix because you live there and it's convenient to look at things there. No, I live in Phoenix because I want to invest there. Why do I want to invest in Phoenix? For the last 50 years, it's had some of the highest growth in the country.
Oh,
It's
wow.
growing at about 4,000 people a month. That means every month we have a need for more podiatrists and hairdressers and body shop repair people and you name it, to cater to an extra 4,000 people. And when you've got growth, that's good for real estate values, as opposed to a town in an area where the main industry was, say, a steel mill, and that industry's closed down, and it employed 80% of the people. That's not good for growth, right? And you can look at these macro things. I love Japan. I speak the language. I go there a lot. I love it there. But the population of Japan is in decline. It's currently at about 127 million, and they think that within 1 generation it's going to drop to below 80 million. That's good for getting rid of congestion. It's good for getting rid of pollution. It's just not good for real estate values because they tend to grow with the population base. So I don't invest in Japan as much as I love the country. So you have to look at all these different factors. So to get back to your question, which factors should we look for? Look at all of them. See what's happening in the area. Is there growth or decline? If there's decline, that's a bad, ominous sign. But if they're filling out new subdivisions and there's a new shopping mall going in, then chances are your storage facility or your little hotel or whatever it is, or big hotel, I'm not trying to demean it, it's probably a good investment because there's growth all around. Our economy is based on growth.
And I feel like it also gives you a really good idea of how good your business, or in this case, your building, is going to do later on with the years. Do you have any experiences where a change of zoning truly changed dramatically the amount of income that you received on a building?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is happening all along. Every town in America 100 years ago was a lot smaller than it is today. Most of them start out as little outposts. And so there are a few commercial buildings with residential clustered around. And then as they grow, the residential spreads. So we see it every day in every city that more and more is being converted from residential to commercial. But if you're asking about personal examples, we had a house that was valued at 160. When the zoning came through and it became commercial, within 2 years, the value of that house had gone to 280.
Oh, wow.
Just based on the zone change and a different tenant mix and therefore different rental income and different cap rates.
And with this new change of zoning, what are some of the documents that you would have to do or the processes that you would have to do when having a new tenant?
Well, you ask the question as though you're expecting me to come up with a litany of these 10 documents, and document 46, subsection B13A requires this. And the zone change is done at a council level. You'll see it on the website that the zoning has gone from R5, I'm making this up, to C3, some residential zoning category to some commercial. But it won't change anything. You don't need extra documents. You can now get a commercial tenant there. And if anyone says, you can't operate a law firm out of this house, you say, yes, you can. Go and do your homework. Check with whomever. I've never had that. I've never had documentation to do a change. It's so easy.
Well, thank you so much for giving us that hope, because I feel like quite a bit of the times when you see a change of regulations in the area where you're investing, it can be a little tricky, but if you are truly informed of what's going on in that area, you can easily take advantage of that and get the best tenant that you can have.
Right. And that's the thing, is to do your homework. Read. People don't read enough. I'm a big fan of reading. We should watch less TV and read more. I always say, if you want to do yourself a favor, take your TV and toss it out the window. Now, if you want to save some money, I'm all for that. Open the window first before you toss the TV out. But either way, get rid of the TV. Not totally. I don't mean it too literally. I have a TV, but I don't have a subscription to cable or dish or anything like that, because I think it rots the mind. You end up watching a program and say, well, this is kind of interesting. I wonder what she says after he insulted her by doing this and that. And you get drawn into some soap, which is just a scriptwriter's fantasy designed to grab your attention long enough so that you'll suffer through the ads, which are usually 10 dB louder than the programming, because that's their revenue model. And so they say the most outrageous things and have the most silly situations and soaps and all that, who did what to whom, in order to keep your attention so that you watch the ads. So stop doing that and read about zone changes happening in your city, and then drive around to see if you can buy something that's going to be affected by that.
That's right.
Or read a book on real estate. It doesn't even have to be one of mine. I've written plenty of them. I think 23 is the current count. It doesn't have to be one of mine. Read any book on real estate, because you'll never learn less. And you might pick up an idea from this book that makes you think, wow, I never knew that would be possible. And you implement it. Maybe you only implement it once in your life, and it only adds an extra $3,000 a month to your bottom line. What a great investment, reading that book, to find out that one thing that gives you $36,000 a year, index for inflation for the rest of your life, and your kids' life and your grandkids' lives as well.
That's right. I feel like we are in such a world that needs more education on real estate. And thank you so much, Dolf, for all of these gold nuggets that you're dropping us, and for the great knowledge that now we have on commercial real estate. Thank you so much. Super
My
grateful
pleasure.
to have you as our mentor. And stay tuned for our next episode.